Welcome to Brand Basics. This is just one of the many webinars you'll find inside the digital toolbox. My name is Lorraine Ball, and I'm going to be your host for this presentation. Over the years, I have worked in both traditional and digital marketing, and one thing is true. Marketing basics apply in every instance. And that's what this program is really about. It's about brand basics, the fundamental things that you need to establish to create your brand. So, what is a brand? It's a simple question. And the short answer is that your brand is more than just a logo. When people see brands, they see these logos, it's more than just the colors or the font. They see the emotions and the ideas and information associated with that brand. From the Wildlife Fund to the MBA, every one of these brands has history and legacy tied with it. So when you see the logo, you also see everything that your brand represents. And so it kind of begs the question, who really owns your brand? Is it you or is it your customers? The branding gurus Al Ries and Jack Trout wrote several books in the 80s about brand positioning and branding strategy. They advanced the concept that while we are the stewards of our brands really only exist in the mind of our customers. And so our job is to position that brand to create a strong. And so our job is to position the brand in the mind of that customer, to create a strong set of associations and feelings that help customers visualize who you are, what you're about, how you solve their problem. And whether it's taking care of their thirst or helping them run faster and job higher, defining what your brand does when they see your logo is the core of every brand. And a brand conversation starts with your customer because if you're trying to build an idea in the customer's head, you have to get to know who that customer is. And so if you haven't defined your ideal client, you probably want to drop back and take a look at that webinar on the subject and then come back and finish this one. But if you have that definition, if you know who your customer is, who they are as people, what's important to them, and what their pain points are, then you're ready to get started. You need to know who the client is, what keeps them up at night, and how you help. And so, as you're defining their pain points, what I want you to do is make a list. But make sure you're really defining the pain points from your customer's perspective. I was talking to an insurance salesman one time, and when we were talking about the idea of pain points, he says, "Well, I know my customers' pain points. They want choices in their financial plan." And I got to tell you, I thought about this for a little bit, and I can honestly tell you that I thought he was crazy. Because as he was talking about all of these choices, I'm thinking to myself, who is laying awake in bed at night worrying about financial choices? His customers were worrying about retirement. The pain point was not having enough money to retire or not having enough money for their kids' college or education. The solution was having a range of financial investments he could offer, and his unique expertise in helping them pick the right one was really what people needed from him. And so, who's your customer and what are their pain points? Write down how you help. And if you're not sure why customers buy from you, ask them. You'll see very quickly how they define their pain points and how they think about your solution. And then you have to go one step further. Like my insurance professional, it wasn't enough that he had these different financial instruments. He had to explain what made him uniquely qualified. It was his years of experience, his licenses, his background that allowed him to sit down with someone and say, yeah, there are 25 products, but this one is right for you. And so, what makes you uniquely qualified to solve your customer's problem? How do you answer the question when someone asks, why should I buy from you? In order to really answer that question, you have to step back and think about your competitors. Who else is trying to sell to your customer or get into their wallet? Every now and then I run across someone who says, nah, you don't understand. I don't have any competitors. Our product is so different and so unique. Well, that's not really true. Everyone has competitors. If your product is unique and innovative, yesterday before you launched, customers were out there. They had that problem and they found a way to solve it. Maybe it doesn't look like your product or service, but the problem was there and so was the solution. So you need to think about your competitors in what I consider three different categories. First tier or primary competitors are people who offer a product or a service that is essentially comparable to yours. So, if a small business owner wants to grow and he decides he's going to invest in marketing, he might hire one marketing company or another. Those companies are first degree competitors. But that business owner might decide that he wants a different approach. His pain point is that he wants to grow, and maybe he hires a marketing company or maybe he hires a business coach. Both companies will provide products and services that can help his business grow, but they're going to be very different products and services. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. It's easiest when you're selling against another company that does exactly what you do. You just have to explain your unique benefits. But when you're dealing with a second degree competitor, someone who's solving the problem in completely a different way, now you have to think about why your solution is better even before you talk specifics about your company. Another example of this might be a heating and air conditioning contractor who wants to sell a furnace. If he's quoting against two other furnace contractors, it's easy. He can talk about his particular brand or he can talk about his company. But essentially, he knows that the customer is going to buy a furnace. But now let's hop over to Northern California, where very often there's a wood burning fireplace or wood burning stove in some of those older homes, keeping the homeowner warm. Now the contractor is not just competing with another contractor, he's competing against the guy who can come in and just update the wood burning fireplace. And so before he can even begin talking about his business, he has to talk about a category of solutions and convince the customer to move to his category. And then when they move to the category, to buy from him. Tertiary customers, third degree competitors are your most challenging because they're not really competitors at all. They're actually distractions. There are other things that your customers can spend money on. For example, a customer needs to hire you or really needs to invest in marketing, but at the same time, they're in an old building and they have to renovate their offices. And while they only have so much money, and so suddenly you're not competing against another marketing company, you're competing against carpeting. And so understanding the factors that come into play that may interfere with your ability to make a sale can help you win when you're competing with third-degree competitors. For the most part, you can concentrate your marketing on first and second degree, but sometimes there are third degree opportunities out there. And if you can nail that conversation, you can win big. Years ago, I was working for a heating and air conditioning business, and we were selling in new construction. Our products were side by side in the design center with new carpet and updated faucets. And so, as customers came in, who had just signed the contract to buy the house, they had an allowance for fixtures. They could spend the money on new lights or upgraded plumbing. And so we were competing for a limited amount of extra dollars. Carpet upgrades, double pane windows, or a more efficient furnace. And so the story we had to tell was about why investing in that high efficiency furnace would have more benefit in the long run than the double pane windows. And it's a very different sales process. And we had to create literature specifically for that market. So knowing who your competitors are, knowing who you're really competing with, helps you craft your brand message, your marketing strategy. Once you narrow it down and you really understand who your competitors are, doing this type of grid can be very helpful. What you want to do is outline 4 to 6, maybe 8 decision criteria, things customers tell you they really consider important when they buy. And then you need to be honest and rank your company and a few of your competitors along those criteria. And see, how do you stack up? Where are you really stronger? Where are your competitors stronger? And you need to be honest. You need to rank the competitors honestly. I've given this assignment to customers who've handed it back to me, and they're all plus signs in their column and negative signs in everybody else's. That's a waste of time because they weren't being honest. They weren't great at everything. And so identify what you're good at, identify your weaknesses, and then look at how that stacks up against your competitors. You'll be more prepared to go into a selling situation if you realistically know how you measure up. And you can also begin to identify strategies to turn your negatives into positives. You can identify places where you have a unique advantage and focus on that in your branding and your messaging. Once you get all of this analysis, once you've identified your customers and your competitors, take time to analyze how your competitors are going to market. Figure out who their target customer is and how is that different from yours. Look at their tagline. Look at their social profiles, their advertising strategy, and their business structure. And again, figure out how you are similar and how you are different. And it is those differences that can help you appeal to a specific group of customers. And so now you need to start filling in the blanks of your position statement. It's a 3-part process. The first is target customer. Who is your customer? When I was running an agency, our target customers were companies with less than 50 employees who were in service industries. The next thing, once we defined who that customer was, the next thing was, what do they want? In this size range, business owners are juggling a lot. So they want simple, practical solutions. They want to feel they're in control. And they want marketing that delivers results. They're not looking for just brand building. And what we did as a company was we provided what we did as a company is we provided marketing strategy and metrics and a no-nonsense approach that these customers appreciated. Our approach didn't work for everyone. Much larger companies maybe felt like we were giving them too much information. That was okay. We didn't want to work with that type of company. And so we used our position statement to narrow our focus to the people we really wanted to work with. Some other examples that I really like. The first is Volvo. Volvo's for that upscale American family. It's a family automobile that offers maximum safety. This is not a car for a single guy who wants to go cruising and impress the ladies. It's not a two-seater Audi. It's not about speed. It's about safety. It's built like a tank. And that makes sense for their target customer. Home Depot is another great example. I love this hardware department store for the do-it-yourselfer. Their customers are weekend warriors. And to support those customers, when you walk into a Home Depot, there are always lots of people to answer your questions. That's very different from Lowe's, which is definitely more of a contractor store. So when I need something, I go to Home Depot because I know I'm going to have questions. But my husband goes to Lowe's because he actually knows his way around a tool shed. He knows the kind of lumber he needs. He knows the nails he needs. He just wants to get in, get out, don't bother me. I'm here, I'm done. So Home Depot, recognizing that they were going to offer the do-it-yourselfer model, and they wanted to make people feel comfortable around the store, it's not that Lowe's makes people uncomfortable. They're really more about the professional tool user. They're structured for more people who know what they want, so there's less people on the floor. And so what you see is that your brand position carries all the way through from your marketing to your delivery. Okay, so now you've got your brand. And now there's the fine tuning. You know what you want your brand to be about. Now it's time to think a little bit about the emotion. One of my favorite examples of style was the Mac PC commercial. This was a really long-running campaign by Mac, and I think it's just a great example. In these ads, Mac was represented by a casual guy in sweatshirts and jeans, and the PC was represented by the guy who probably reminded you of someone who ran the IT department in your company. They were drawing a line in the sand that said, if you're young and hip and cool, if you want casual, comfortable, and informal computing, come on over to the Mac side. But if you're buttoned down and you really need structure, well, maybe you need a PC. But how did they get there? How did this become one of my favorite commercial series? I'm pretty sure they did a number of exercises around branding. And that's what I want to show you now. As you try to define your style, think about some of these questions. What kind of flower is your company? Is it a daisy or a rose? They're both pretty, but the daisy is definitely approachable. It's fun, it makes you smile. The rose is elegant and stylish and has thorns. So which are you? Are you going to be elegant and stylish, or are you going for the daisy? How about dogs? Are you a French poodle or a golden retriever? There's nothing wrong with a French poodle, and if you're a high fashion brand or an interior designer, you probably want to be more like that French poodle. People don't pay to have a designer develop a home that has a lived-in golden retriever look. But for example, when I worked for Conseco, we were a financial services company and decided we wanted to be different from our competitors. They were, for the most part, going after the top 20% of the market. They were the French poodles, high net worth individuals In turn, we wanted to be an everyman brand, and so we saw ourselves more like the golden retriever. You can do this same exercise with cars, shoes, stilettos versus loafers. You can do it with with any product category that has multiple variations, not just high end and low end, but real differences in quality or construction. Are you IKEA or are you Ashley Home Furniture? Again, there's a style difference. One is hands on, one is done for you. Where do you want to fit? Another way to do this, if analogies don't really work for you, is simply with adjectives. One of the things I do is pull a list of 30 or 40 adjectives and ask someone to pick the words that would describe their company. Friendly, smart, serious, innovative, curious, responsive. You can do welcoming, you can do feminine or masculine. Any adjective that you would use to describe a person apply to your company. But the trick is not to pick too many. 4 or 5 is about all you want to use. And I might give someone 30 or 40 to choose from. Sometimes it's tough because you are like, well, we could do this, but this one also fits. But when you narrow it down to the 4 or 5 words that are really most relevant, it can help you paint a picture of your brand. When I was running our agency, we decided on 4 words: curious, innovative, welcoming, and professional. After you find those words, now you want to think about colors. In 80%, in a study, 80% of the time, color increased brand recognition. And so you don't want to be changing your colors all the time. You want to find a group of colors that work, that represent what you want them to represent, and then use them consistently. Color has meaning, and it is typically associated with different brands. If I hand someone a glass with a red label and a red napkin and I put soda in it, they're going to think Coke. If I hand them a hamburger with yellow wrapping paper, they're going to think McDonald's. Colors have meaning. When you look at this spectrum, you see it's not just a random assortment of brands. Over here on the blue side, you see a lot of tech firms and banks. It started with IBM and HP because blue was also associated with banking and trust. You see more of the internet firms shifting from blues to greens. You have reds for some of the more established brands. Pinks definitely for women. In general, colors have meaning. And you can look at categories and begin to figure out where you want to be. Red attracts attention, but it also has a little bit of a kind of approach, not approach feel to it. Red's also the color of a stoplight, warning and danger. Red does, if you put red in front of people, it will actually increase their heart rate. I prefer orange. It has a lot of the same associations as red without the warning danger element. Blues, stability, trust. Green is actually the easiest color for the eye to process online, which is why a lot of internet brands went to green. Black is often associated with luxury. Black and white photography is very popular with high-end brands. Yellow is bright and cheery. Purple tends to be a power color for women. And pink is often more associated with younger women's products. But it's not the same for everyone. Here you see almost across the board, everyone sees red associated with speed. But red can be frightening. Orange can often be associated either with fun or cheapness. Blue, trust, security, reliability, quality, and high tech. Black has a lot of the same associations, though it doesn't have the same trust factor that blue has. Purple and yellow have got a little bit more fun. And so, as you're picking colors, you want to be aware of the associations, but you also want to ask yourself, does this color make sense for my brand? There are also things like brand associations that you want to keep in mind. There are certain industries that sort of fall back on these different images. For example, you'll see a lot of financial services companies using mountains. You'll see a lot of educational companies may use keys. So decide if you want to align with these associations or you don't. One of the challenges when you pick an image like this to include in your logo is that you start to look like everybody else in that industry. Okay, you've got your colors, you've got your fonts, you have your messaging. One of the last pieces of building your brand is assembling your brand kit. The reason to do this is both for you, but also for anyone who is going to work on images and resources for your brand. What this will allow you to do is hand it to someone, let them create marketing material for you, and it will always look like your content. You want to have guidelines for your logo. How does it appear in color? If you're printing in black and white, what should it look like? And what should it look like in reverse? In addition to your logo, you want to have an avatar. And that's because a lot of applications truncate everything down to a square image. If I tried to take my horizontal logo and use it on Facebook, for example, it would give me a couple of letters from the middle. And so by creating just a simple avatar that represents my logo, it's a lot easier. And it becomes very, very recognizable. And the trick is to use both the avatar and your logo consistently throughout your marketing. You want to have a standard color palette, 4, 6, maybe 8. 8's a lot of colors. But you want to have your primary colors. You want to have some colors that match. As you're thinking about your colors, you want to make sure that you've identified the RGB. This is if you're going to use Microsoft Office products, they still rely on the RGB or the web-safe version of the color. Things to keep in mind when you're printing, if you're doing offset printing versus digital, these colors will be a little bit different. If you're using traditional offset printing, you're also going to need a Pantone color. And again, what you can see on screen versus what you see when you print, it will be just a little bit different. Be prepared for that. As you're selecting your colors, you want to have at least one color that is what I call a workhorse font. It should be fairly dark so that if you wanted to use it in place of black, you could and it would still be readable. This teal and this red are fine for headlines. They're not good for a lot of body copy. It becomes really hard to read. The blue is. And the beige just gives us a little bit of accent. In addition to colors, font matters. For example, digital toolbox, to give it that kind of fun, little bit of a techie look, we use a font called isonorm. That's great for my logo, but it isn't as readable as I'd like in upper and lower case. And so we have a body copy font, Fira Sans, that has a lot of the same elements, but is more readable. And this is what we use for almost everything, for our PowerPoint, for a lot of our social media content, lots of the body copy and everything on our website. And then you may want a display font. And next, you want to think about your font. You do not want to have to reinvent the wheel every time you go to create a document. Having standard fonts allows you to jump right to being productive. For example, our logo, when you see the Digital Toolbox logo, we use a font called isonorm. It's got a very kind of squared off techie feel, and we really like it. But reading an entire page of isonorm is hard. It's not a very readable font. And so we have a companion font, Fira Sans, that we use for everything. We use it in our PowerPoint presentations, in our social media graphics, and on our website. And every now and then, I want a little bit of a handwriting feel. And so we've added Benedict for that just fun accent. But this, Fira Sans, is what we use in everything. Again, there are hundreds of fonts in Microsoft, and you can play with them over and over. And you open up Canva, and there's all new fonts there too. But the truth is, you don't got time for that. Standardizing your font allows you to focus on the message, not the font that it's going to be delivered in. You may also want to standardize your icons. We did this when we launched the Digital Toolbox. We created a bunch of icons that we would use over and over again for metrics, for our podcast, for social media. They were a little different. They were unique to us. But what it did was it allowed us to create a set of images that worked together and also looked like our brand. You don't have to have icons. If you do start using icons and you just download a standard icon set, stay with one family. If you start out with icons that have thin lines, stay with them. If you start out with icons that are bold in color, whatever you use in the beginning, stay with it so there's that consistency. One last thing that we've done for I've done for some clients, not everybody needs it, is we've created some textures. And these are nice backgrounds that can be used on web pages and PowerPoint presentations. Maybe it's a repeat of the logo or a graphic that is a part of their brand. You don't have to have textures, but it does add that extra polish. And again, once you create them, you can use them over and over again. When I launched the Digital Toolbox, I decided that I wanted photography as part of the brand. And so I began collecting images of tools, but I decided that I would do them all in black and white. And so I looked for black and white images with lots of white space around them or white space in the center where we could actually write messages. Use these on headers for web pages or as social media ads where there was room to get text around them. And so as you start working on your brand, Start collecting great stock photography that you can use, that you can customize and make unique to you. One of the things that we decided as I was working on this brand and working with designers was that I did not want any people in any of my photographs. I wanted every business owner to look at the toolbox and see themselves, see these were tools for them. And so create your collection of images and write some guidelines. So again, as you're working with graphic designers, they don't pick photos that don't feel like you. Here you see one more example of a photograph, black and white. You see this nice notepad in the center, and we use this a lot for class titles because we can just put a little bit of text right in here, and we can actually put different text in this for each of our different classes, but it still looks and feels like our collection of images. And finally, your tagline and your messages. You know what's important to your customers. You know who your customer is, and you know the personality you want those taglines to have. These are the taglines that I used with my marketing agency over the 20 years that I owned that company. And while they're different, there is a continuity that rolls through them. Solutions that fit, starting with our very first idea of custom marketing campaigns, marketing services for small businesses. So more defining what we did because a lot of people thought we were an IT company originally when they saw this. This was probably my favorite because it was a clever way to outline what we did, helping small businesses become big businesses, but it wasn't as specific to marketing. This one really got to the heart of marketing in plain English, that we were a no-nonsense firm, and finally, take control of your marketing, which ultimately led us to the digital toolbox and creating a platform where businesses could learn what they needed to learn and do the marketing on their own. What you'll see here is five taglines over 20 years. So it wasn't like we were changing taglines every time we turned around, but this was something we could change as the company grew and evolved. And it is something that did not impact the way things look. It didn't impact our colors and our fonts. And so we could be consistent and adjust our taglines. Over time, your messaging should change as your company grows. But if you hold those other pieces content, you have more room to flex your tagline and your messaging. Your brand is an asset. And as you add more content around your brand, you create more value. You enhance the value of your brand, like the same way when you remodel your home and you put in fresh carpeting, you enhance the value of your home. And so it is something that when you sell your business, if you've invested in growing a strong brand, it will be part of the conversation. I don't remember the number, but I saw a report at one time that said Coca-Cola could literally burn to the ground every one of their factories, every warehouse and distribution center. I don't want to say it wouldn't matter, but with the strength of their brand, they would still have value as a company. Now's a great time for you to be investing in your asset, your brand. If you'd like to learn more about branding and marketing in general, be sure to check out all of the resources at digitaltoolbox.club. Thanks for joining me.